Hey, what's up, my brothers? This is Enemy Stand User. I hope you guys are doing well. Today, I wanted to kind of share some of my own theories and kind of my own stuff of what I want to see from Jujutsu Kaisen in the future now that we are so far into the series. My main point was, like you may have seen from the title, would be my idea on what KENJAKU has in store based on what we know so far. But I want to kind of get some things in the air as far as some stuff that I think might be going on in the manga and get a picture first of what we could see during and after the calling games. Of course, I can't share all of my thoughts today, and let me know if y'all want another kind of JJK discussion video like this. And I guess this is really is more like a discussion video on some things I want to see in the future of Jujutsu Kaisen, but I'll try to keep my thoughts short, and of course there will be timestamps in the description below. But let's go into some of my theories for what we could see in the future of Jujutsu Kaisen. My first thought, though, before getting into more heavy stuff, is us hopefully getting more backstory on our main character Yuji Itadori when it comes to him. And we follow him so much in the story, it could be kind of easy to forget just how strange and unorthodox his existence is in JJK. Yuji seems like the perfect vessel to house the cursed Sukuna due to him being very superhuman with his own raw power in general as a person. It makes me think that his existence was planned by the entity known as KENJAKU based on a little scene that we got from chapter 143, and it really seems like we need a lot more info with that whole situation with Itadori's family and KENJAKU's involvement. KENJAKU himself even stated himself that Itadori was his son, and just what a very dark and twisted situation that is now that KENJAKU has just toyed with so many lives, and to what end does it even mean? It just makes you wonder just the kind of fate Yuji has in store. It might be really bleak and tragic, or things could turn out a different way. But what in the world does Yuji even have to do with KENJAKU's plan? We just need more backstory in that with Itadori and his family. This brings me to my next point, though, regarding KENJAKU and Sukuna's involvement, because at this point our boy Yuji is just being used and abused by both of them. Again, I could spend like 20 minutes talking about them, but I'll really try to summarize it. In short, I feel like it is heavily implied that KENJAKU is indeed working with the King of Curses, Sukuna, and KENJAKU is mentioned as being one of the most evil sorcerers in Jujutsu history, and that was regarded while he was in Kamo Norotoshi's body, so his evil definitely could be just as notorious as Sukuna's. And I believe KENJAKU has been around for over 1,000 years, like that of the HEIAN era, right along with Sukuna. And we know that currently in the calling games, KENJAKU is sparking this new age of sorcery like that of the golden age of sorcery in the HEIAN era. And in this calling game, sorcerers from hundreds of years ago, 400 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago are being revived and brought to this modern age. This is all possible because KENJAKU made it so that when these sorcerers made vows with him, KENJAKU was able to give them a second chance at life in the future, leading us to where we are now. And these sorcerers are deadly. They are prominent and powerful figures in their own respective era. Well, I would assume most of them are based on what we've seen. But in the HEIAN Golden Age in particular, we get a glimpse that most of these figures had beef with Sukuna, and we can assume that Sukuna was for sure head honcho in that period. He was likely fighting with some of the best sorcerers in history and still supposedly came out on top, and that's really crazy, and probably why he is regarded as the King of Curses. So now KENJAKU, being as conniving as he is, could have given Sukuna that same deal as he did with other sorcerers in their first life, to be reborn again, sealing their essence into special grade cursed objects, allowing them to come back when their own time is ready. That time being now in the calling games, now that KENJAKU has unleashed seals on people like that of Yuji, who ingested cursed objects and are no longer themselves anymore. However, in Yuji's case, Sukuna was already in motion in Yuji's body well before the calling games happened. Even Megumi himself made reference to that fact in chapter 158. It's true that Yuji is automatically a Koen game player because of Sukuna and the contract Sukuna may have had with Kenjaku, but Yuji ultimately ate the finger of his own will. There was no perceivable outside factor in that situation. And that's why I think we need like some sort of Yuji or Kenjaku flashback to kind of understand what Yuji is and how Sukuna is involved, because by all means Yuji is kind of like a cursed womb. His blood brother Chozo recognized their relation just like he had a connection with Izo as well as Kechizo and the rest of his siblings. So Yuji, just like them, is the result of Kenjaku's cursed experimentation and could be some sort of breakthrough now that Yuji is Sukuna's vessel. A lot of folks now think that Sukuna may have something to do with the quote-unquote bomb Kenjaku was referring to in the recent chapters, and in chapter 136, which I highly recommend y'all check out if y'all want to reread that. But Kenjaku stated he wanted to create something that was beyond curse, beyond human, or rather beyond Jujutsu sorcerer, sorry, but that answer was just flickering darkly in the chaos. So the Koen game could be just that chaos he mentioned, and Yuji and Sukuna represent all three possibilities. So it's really just a lot to wrap your head around, but Gege has huge stuff in the works for both Kenjaku and Sukuna and their possible plans / connections to one another. The next point I want to go over is a possible Heian era flashback that could explain Sukuna and some of the other prominent figures in the era, such as the great clans, the big three vengeful cursed spirits, maybe even before they turned into curses, even Sukuna before he turned into a curse, and when they were just Jujutsu sorcerers. That would be amazing to see, and amazing to see the fall of the Heian era and the events that possibly led to Kenjaku making vows with some of the sorcerers, or the change between eras, since we know that now sorcery is not the same as it was now as it was back in those days. And the Heian period was such an important time in Jujutsu history, and I really want to know just what it was like in those days and how it connects now to this current era. So I feel sometime during or after the games, we at least deserve some sort of flashback or like an explanation for the era in greater detail. And next, this is kind of a little bit of an extra part in my theory, almost like a wish list, but I'm going to mention some old sorcerers and figures that I would love to see in the Koen games or in something like a flashback. Like I said before, seeing the big three vengeful curses would be awesome, especially Sugawara Michizane and how he was being an ancient relative to Gojo and Yuta. But the other two spirits are still unknown and unnamed, but a pretty good theory by Kyle Anime Scooter stated figures like Tara no Masakado could relate to the Zenin family, and Emperor Sutoku could relate to the Kamo as their spirit. All of these figures are from the Heian era and are based on some in real life poems and quotes that they have, and they relate to some of the families in the manga. So that's a very, very cool detail to think about. Also, the Imperial Fujiwara clan recently became known in the manga, and we could see figures from that clan as well, like Fujiwara no Michinaga, who was very prominent at that time in the Heian age in real life and was said to be a rival to the Sugawara clan, which is very interesting. Also in the manga, in chapter 83, in the Mekamaru fight, it mentions the Ashia clan with Sadatsuna Ashia, who was said to be the creator of the new shadow style simple domain back in the golden age. So that would be amazing if we could see more figures like that. So seeing just more big shot ancient shamans in general besides Ryomen Sukuna would be fantastic, to say the least. Chozo's brothers too, the death painting cursed wombs, could for real come into the story real soon now that Chozo has access to them. All of them being referenced to the literal in real life death paintings in Buddhism based on the stages of death and decay, and not to mention all the other figures and various things like priests, monks, clan heads, and cursed spirits, all from that sort of time. And I could definitely see why Gege picked the Heian period to kind of focus on, because there is a ton of historical Japanese folklore and people during that time. So this was kind of my crazy tangent on what we could see Of course, not all of them, if any, may not even make it into the story, but it just goes to show the options Gege has open for inspiration and for reference in this. Next up, I want to consider the higher ups and who could come back into the story for backup for the sorcerers, because right now help for the Jujutsu sorcerers is very, very sparse. It seems like everyone right now is either killed or injured or out of action, or we just don't know what's going on with them in the Koen games, especially on the Kyoto side of the school and some of the other Jujutsu high teachers and things like that. And some of the people that are left, I would say, are not really like very heavy hitters in terms of how much they could do in the Koen games and or against these reborn Koen game players, with some fresh new players like Hoguruma with no sorcerer history being classed as grade 1 material. And let me just list some of the people who we know really are not a factor at this time in the story at the moment. Mai is dead, Todo injured, Nanami dead, Mekamaru dead, Yaga dead, Inumaki's injured, Gojo is sealed, and finally Nobara we don't know, she's unknown. I really want to believe that Nobara is alive and well and ready to come back and ready to join the mix. And I'm sure if she did come back, JJK will just skyrocket even more with hype and tweets and whatnot, and she'll probably have something like reverse curse or some sort of positive energy up her arsenal. But the more time that goes on, the more I feel like Gege is just not going to be giving her back, and it's really sad. But I myself have no clue in what manner she'll come back in, or if she'll be back at all. However, with or without her, I feel the story would still slap, but the sorcerers still really need help, though. In the Koen games, with the Koen games just being as big as it is, they really need backup. I think Yaga said in chapter JJK 0 that the sorcerers numbers were like around 50 or so. So now that number very likely has dropped significantly, including Yaga. So it would be cool if the sorcerers got help from other Jujutsu divisions like the Ainu division, and maybe even if they got help from like past Jujutsu sorcerers, past shamans. That would be extremely crazy, because some shamans, I feel, might actually want to kill Kenjaku or go against the Koen game, or even kill Sukuna with they might have their own goals, or so in some roundabout way they could kind of align with the Jujutsu Society, kind of like how Chozo was. Even now we got nut jobs like Takaba, who off the rip are modern sorcerers, but he is willing to help out the sorcerer side, so it seems at the moment. And we will just have to see just how many other players out there are willing to help the Jujutsu Society if the chance arises or something like that. But it's still not like the sorcerers don't have really good help now in the games like Yuta and Hakari, which have been really gassed up recently during this arc and are already aiming to take out big shot figures in the game. So their strength is very essential right now, and I'm sure they will be a huge help in the game, since both of them were not in Shibuya at all. And Maki, of course, the GOAT Maki, she could also be just as important when she debuts in the Koen game. It's just gonna hit different. She is way too strong now with her heavenly restriction, and the moment we get her back, I'm sure JJK would be trending again like it did with other big moments. I would say she would be a very huge help on the sorcerer side now, way more than ever. Another thing though is the higher ups themselves. They do not seem at all helpful in any way since they killed Yaga, and if anyone decides to unseal Gojo, they are suspected of treason and could be an enemy against the higher ups, or rather like the Jujutsu Society itself. So it's just everything is just like a mess. The sorcerers are trying to handle it, but everything is just a mess, guys. And Kenjaku really is turning the entire JJK world upside down, and there does not seem to be like a thing anyone really can do about it now that Gojo is sealed. My last thought before wrapping up here is my crazy theory on Kenjaku and what he could be planning to do once he has Tengen, and what type of world he wants to create. Tengen is a sort of entity in this story that is somewhat very weird and abstract. He seems to represent the stability for the Jujutsu world, and is probably the most important factor right now as an element in the story. He seems like an endgame type character, and he is said to be over 1200 years old, possessing the curse technique of immortality. However, his body still continues to age. So this phenomenon is very strange in the fact when he reaches a certain age without merging with a stable vessel, he begins to evolve and ascend to a higher state of being. So he loses his sense of self, and therefore Japan itself would be unstable. Even now, with Tengen not merging after the vessel incident with Toji, he has started to become the world itself, as he stated. Tengen has already reached a point where he is more like a curse and is starting to ascend rapidly to pass a point of no return. And Tengen stated Kenjaku may be able to seize him and take control over him through curse spirit manipulation. So if it got to that point, it would really be game over for humanity, as evil and darkness would spread throughout the earth and the balance of things would be completely off. And the Culling Games itself are just like a precursor to prepare the humans of Japan to cross the other shore, so to speak, and prepare for the merger with Tengen. So all over Japan, these colonies are in this game of death, and Kenjaku is responsible for all of it. But with my theory, I'm starting to believe, like what's been mentioned in the manga, that the Culling Game itself is just a facade, just to cover up Kenjaku's true intentions, like what we saw in chapter 167. Kenjaku's plans are so much bigger than what we could even expect, based on him having this quote-unquote bomb and Kenjaku meeting up with the Chinese higher-ups, or like the UN or whatever it is. It seems like the Chinese government given the language. And that's a little bit of what my theory relies on, because in chapter 136, when Yuki was talking with Geto about the future, she mentioned that Japan is the one place in the world where Jujutsu sorcerers can develop and are capable of becoming shamans. The same goes for cursed spirits, because of Tengen's barrier and how it's optimized in a way that it only isolates cursed energy to the country of Japan. Now, she stated a certain superpower would not remain silent. And of course, one of the countries highlighted in this panel is China, I think. So either China is making a move, or Kenjaku is seeking out China to instigate them. I don't know, but things definitely are being set in motion outside of Japan. And what Reggie said about the game itself being a bluff is now started to make a little bit more sense. Even with a character like Yuki Tsukumo, with what we know about her, she seems to be putting all of her effort into like the big picture of things as a whole. Even meeting with Tengen in another previous encounter, she's like on a whole nother level as far as her own goals are in the verse, and she's just kind of like an overseer in the events of the Culling Game, not being too involved at the moment. And we know as a special grade, Yuki is like an oddball in the Jujutsu society with her methods. She blatantly stated herself that she really was not on humanity's side, and we keep hearing about her mentioning her comrades, maybe some other third-party group that she's with, who knows, but Yuki really is implied to have outside connections and info us readers don't really know about. Even her own outfit kind of hints at her connections, and she's wearing this formal Chinese dress. So China apparently is on the radar. I don't know if she met up with them like Kenjaku did. Am I reading too much into it? I don't know. But either way, Yuki will be a big help now that she is protecting Tengen with Chozo. So if it gets to the point where Tengen loses control or Kenjaku gets there, hopefully we will get more info on Yuki as a character as a whole, and her involvement in all this and her goals and whatnot. But regarding Kenjaku, like I said, Kenjaku could be meeting with superpower countries like China to offer them a deal to spread cursed energy to their country. So, but remember, Kenjaku is the same person responsible for jumpstarting the games, reviving hundreds of sorcerers, making hundreds of new sorcerers, and creating 10 city-scale barriers all throughout Japan. And he is stated to be the second strongest barrier user next to Tengen himself. Tengen said Kenjaku lacked the cursed energy to turn everyone in the country to a sorcerer. However, if Kenjaku was to seize Tengen's power, or for the games to finish and this quote-unquote bomb to drop, I think Tengen's control over cursed energy in general with these barriers would crumble, and it would just be all out chaos. It would be chaos. Just like what happened in Tokyo with that void, it would happen all over the earth. Millions of curses going around killing people, sorcerers going around killing one another, cursing one another, and the world would just collapse in on itself. And that's not even considering if Sukuna and his influence got out during all of that. It would just, the world just would not belong to humanity anymore at that point. And I think that is the outcome that Kenjaku wants. That is the world of the future. And that is the outcome that Yuki ultimately fears eventually would happen when she was talking about the suffering and the blood and the carnage in chapter 136. And if Kenjaku was to take down Tengen's barrier and spread the influence of cursed energy under him throughout the world, it would just be game over. That cannot happen. Overall, right now, I think the Jujutsu Society is just like a mess. Right now, it's just a mess with all the info that is leaked, and the whole world knows about the existence of cursed spirits and stuff. And I just remember that one panel in chapter 137 where I think it's like the higher ups talking, and they're just going crazy about the political system in Tokyo and everything that's happening there. It's just like a complete void. It's just utter chaos. So things would just escalate so much, and who even knows what Kenjaku is like really planning, let alone what Sukuna has to do with all this. But Kenjaku in particular is just on like a 5D chessboard right now and dunking on the entire JJK world, while Gojo is like sitting in a box or worse. And it's just like the sorcerers need more leverage, or things are going to break past the point of no return. But hopefully y'all enjoyed hearing some of my thoughts on what's happening in JJK right now and my theory on Kenjaku's sort of endgame plan. But I know it's really crazy, but Gege right now is absolutely killing it with the story so far, and I look forward to seeing how it progresses in the future. And let me know how y'all feel about the vid. I didn't really cover everything in depth like Sukuna, the Angel, Prison Realm, or like Culling game details, but if y'all want to see more content like this in the future, just let me know down below. But thank you guys for watching this video. This has been Enemy Stand User, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.